I stood on the front porch of my daughter Rachel's house, clutching a bottle of vintage wine in one hand and a card in the other. I thought we were celebrating her 10th wedding anniversary. The house was a sprawling mansion in the suburbs, the kind with pillars that looked like marble but were actually hollow plaster. I reached for the doorbell, a smile on my face, ready to play the role of the supportive father. Then my phone buzzed in my breast pocket. It was a sharp, insistent vibration that made me pause. I pulled it out. The screen lit up with a text from Steinberg, my lawyer for 30 years. The message was short. Do not sign anything. Call me immediately. My heart hammered against my ribs. Steinberg never texted after 5 in the afternoon unless the building was on fire. I stepped back from the door, moving into the shadow of a decorative cypress tree, and dialed his number. He answered on the first ring. Bernie listened to me very carefully. Steinberg's voice was low and urgent. Rachel just sent a courier to my office. She filed a petition to activate a durable power of attorney over your estate. She claims you have been diagnosed with severe cognitive decline. She has a buyer lined up for your farm. Bernie, they want to close the sale tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. The phone almost slipped from my hand. My farm, the 200 acres of prime land I had bought 40 years ago, the place where I taught Rachel to ride a bike, the place where my late wife Catherine and I had planned to grow old. They were selling it tomorrow. Steinberg continued, his voice cutting through my shock like a razor. They are claiming you are unfit. Bernie, they say you are a danger to yourself. If you sign any document tonight, any document at all, they can use it to validate their claim that you are compliant with their supervision. Do not sign. Do you understand? I understood. I understood everything in a single blinding flash. The invitations to dinner, the sudden concern for my health over the past few weeks, the way Jason, my son-in-law, had been asking about property taxes. It wasn't love. It was a demolition job. I hung up the phone and stood there in the dark. The cold night air bit into my face, but I didn't feel it. I felt a coldness spreading from my chest outward. They thought I was just an old retired construction worker living on a pension. They thought I was a senile old fool who could be moved around like a piece of furniture. They had no idea that I still owned 40% of the largest construction firm in the state through blind trusts. They had no idea they were declaring war on the man who built the very foundations of this city. I reached into my pocket and pulled out a small digital voice recorder I used for dictating memoirs. I clicked it on and slipped it into the front pocket of my jacket, leaving the microphone just peeking out. I smoothed my tie. I put the smile back on my face, but it didn't reach my eyes. I pressed the doorbell. It was showtime. The door swung open, and there was Rachel. She was wearing a dress that probably cost more than my first car. Her smile was bright, too bright, like a neon sign that flickers before it burns out. Dad, you made it. She pulled me into a hug that felt like a trap. She smelled of expensive perfume and desperation. Come in, come in. Jason is just opening the wine. We have been waiting for you. I stepped into the foyer. The house was magnificent on the surface, but I knew construction. I looked at the crown molding and saw the hairline cracks. I looked at the floor and saw the cheap laminate disguised as hardwood. It was a house built on debt, a castle of cards waiting for a breeze. Jason walked out of the kitchen wiping his hands on a towel. He was 42, but dressed like a 20-year-old influencer wearing sneakers that cost $500. Hey, Bernie, good to see you. Good to you look a little tired. Are you feeling okay? The game had begun. This was the gaslighting Steinberg had warned me about. They needed to establish that I was frail. I looked at him and blinked slowly, playing the part. I am all right. Jason. Just a little trouble with my eyes lately. The drive over was a bit confusing. I intentionally slurred the word confusing just a fraction. Jason exchanged a quick, satisfied glance with Rachel. I saw it. They thought the bait was taken. Come sit down, Dad. Rachel guided me to the dining room table, her hand gripping my elbow a little too firmly, as if she were guiding a toddler. Brittany is here too. She is just finishing up a call. Brittany, my 19-year-old granddaughter, was slumped on the sofa in the living room. She didn't stand up. She didn't look up from her phone. Hey, Grandpa, she mumbled, her thumbs flying across the screen. I looked at her, the girl I'd set up a college fund for, the girl whose first car I had secretly paid for. She looked at me with total indifference. To her, I was just an ATM that had stopped dispensing cash fast enough. We sat at the table. The dinner was elaborate: roast beef, truffled potatoes, expensive wine. But the conversation was an interrogation disguised as small talk. Rachel poured me a glass of wine, filling it to the brim. So, Dad, Rachel said, cutting her meat with surgical precision, we were worried about you last week. You didn't answer your phone on Tuesday. Did you forget to charge it again? I hadn't forgotten. I was at a board meeting for the corporation finalizing a merger worth $30 million. But I couldn't tell them that. Not yet. I rubbed my forehead, finding a headache. I think I lost the charger. Rachel, I looked for it in the kitchen, but I couldn't remember where I put it. My memory isn't what it used to be. Jason leaned forward, his voice dripping with fake sympathy. That is scary, Bernie. Losing things is the first sign. We have been reading about this. Living alone out on that big farm. It is dangerous. What if you fall? What if you leave the stove on? I took a sip of wine. It tasted bitter. Or maybe that was just the bile rising in my throat. I am fine. Jason, the farm is my home. Catherine and I built that house. Rachel put her fork down. The metal clinked loudly against the china. Mom is gone. Dad, she has been gone for 5 years. You're holding on to a ghost. We just want you to be safe. We found this wonderful community. It is assisted living. They cook for you. They clean. You wouldn't have to worry about property taxes or maintenance. Assisted living. That was the code word for a nursing home where they could dump me and forget I existed. I looked around the room. I saw the new crystal chandelier. I saw the designer handbags on the counter. I saw the stack of unopened bills on the side table that Jason thought he had hidden. They didn't care about my safety. They cared about the $2 million my farmland was worth to developers. They were drowning in debt, and I was their life raft. I need to think about it, I said, making my hand tremble as I lifted the glass again. It is a big decision. We can help you with the decision, Jason said. He reached under the table and pulled out a leather folder. He placed it on the table and slid it toward me. In fact, we wanted to take a load off your shoulders tonight. This is just a standard form. It allows Rachel to handle the utility bills and the insurance for the farm. You know how complicated that paperwork gets. If you sign this, you won't have to worry about the mail anymore. We will handle the boring stuff. I looked at the document. It wasn't for utility bills. It was the durable power of Attorney Steinberg had warned me about. It granted Rachel full, unrestricted control over my assets, my bank accounts, and my medical decisions. It was a death warrant for my independence. Brittany finally walked over to the table, grabbing a roll from the basket. Just sign it. Grandpa, Mom has been stressing about your bills for weeks. Just let them do it so we can eat dessert. Her tone was bored and titled. She viewed my life as an inconvenience that was delaying her sugar rush. I looked at the pen Jason was holding out to me. It was a nice pen, Mont Blanc, probably bought with the money I gave them for Christmas. I reached for it, letting my hand shake violently. I watched their eyes. They were hungry. They were like wolves watching a wounded deer. Rachel was holding her breath. Jason was licking his lips. I took the pen. I brought the tip down to the paper. I saw Rachel's shoulders relax. She thought she had won. She thought the old builder was finally pouring the concrete on his own tomb. Then I jerked my hand. The wine glass tipped over. The deep red liquid splashed across the white tablecloth, soaking the document, turning the legal paper into a soggy red mess. Oh no, I cried out, dropping the pen. I am so clumsy. Look what I did. I am so sorry. I tried to dab at the paper with my napkin, effectively tearing the wet page right down the middle where the signature line was. Jason stood up so fast his chair fell backward. Jesus, Bernie, watch what you are doing. The mask slipped. For a second, the caring son-in-law vanished and the desperate, angry debtor appeared. Rachel shot him a warning look. Jason took a deep breath, clenching his fists. It is okay, Dad. It is just wine. We can print another copy. No, no, I said, standing up shakily. I am ruining everything. I am making a mess. I feel dizzy. I think I need to go home. I forgot to take my heart medication. I need to go home right now. Rachel stood up, blocking my path. Dad, you can't drive if you're dizzy. Stay here. We will print the paper and you can sign it. Then you can sleep in the guest room. I looked her in the eye. This was the woman I'd carried on my shoulders at parades. This was the woman I'd comforted when her first boyfriend broke her heart. Now she was a stranger. I cannot stay, Rachel, I said, allowing a rare tone of steel to enter my voice before masking it with frailty again. If I don't take my pill in the next hour, Doctor, Vance said I could have an episode. You don't want me to have a heart attack right here on your rug, do you? The mention of a heart attack made her pause. If I died before signing, it would go to probate, and that would take months. They didn't have months. Steinberg had told me they were 30 days away from foreclosure. They needed the farm sold this week. Fine, Rachel snapped, her patience fraying. Go home. Take your medicine. I will bring the papers to the farm tomorrow morning. We will do breakfast. Just you and me. I shuffled toward the door. Jason was staring at the ruined document, his face pale. He knew they were running out of time. I opened the front door and the night air hit me again. I turned back to look at them one last time. Happy anniversary, I said. I walked to my truck, my steps heavy but steady. I climbed in and locked the doors. I pulled the recorder out of my pocket and pressed stop. I had it. I had the pressure. The lies about the document's content. The admission that they were targeting the farm. I started the engine. I wasn't going home to sleep. I was going to Steinberg's office. He was waiting for me. We had a lot of work to do before the sun came up. My daughter wanted to play games with my legacy. She wanted to treat me like a child. Tomorrow, I was going to show her what a grown man does when his family declares war. I drove away from the house of lies, and for the first time all night, I smiled. But it wasn't a nice smile. It was the smile of a man who was about to foreclose on his own family. The heavy oak door of Steinberg's private office clicked shut behind me, sealing out the hum of the city. It was 1 o'clock in the morning, but the lights were blazing. This room smelled of old leather, expensive scotch, and billable hours. It was a smell I usually associated with victory, with closing multi-million-dollar deals for the Kowalski Group. Tonight, it smelled like a funeral home. Steinberg was sitting behind his massive mahogany desk, his tie undone, looking at a thick file spread out in front of him. He didn't look at me like a friend tonight. He looked at me like a general briefing a commander who had just been shot in the back. I walked over to the sidebar and poured myself a glass of water. My hands were steady now. The tremors I had faked at Rachel's dinner table were gone. I took a long drink, washing away the taste of that expensive wine and the lies my daughter had fed me. Steinberg watched me. He knew who I really was, to the world, to my neighbors, and even to my own ungrateful family. I was Bernie, the retired foreman who lived on a pension and drove a 10-year-old truck. They saw the calluses on my hands and assumed I was simple. They didn't know that those calluses came from building the skyline of the city. They didn't know that the BK emblazoned on the cranes towering over downtown stood for Bernie Kowalski. I had kept my name off the Forbes list and my face out of the papers to protect them, to keep them grounded. What a spectacular failure that had been. Steinberg cleared his throat. He tapped a finger on the file. Bernie, we have a problem, a big one. Mike just sent over the financials on Jason and Rachel. It is worse than we thought. I sat down in the leather chair opposite him. Give it to me straight. Arthur, don't sugarcoat it. I have built skyscrapers and hurricanes. I can handle a little rain. Steinberg slid a stack of papers across the desk. It wasn't rain, Bernie. It is a tsunami. Pawa, your son-in-law, Jason, the genius entrepreneur, isn't just having a bad month. He's drowning. He leveraged their house to buy into a cryptocurrency scheme 6 months ago. He lost everything. The bank sent a notice of default last week. They are 30 days away from foreclosure. I picked up the document. It was a foreclosure notice from First National. I saw the numbers. $500,000 in debt, $500,000. My jaw tightened. This was why they were so desperate. This was why they needed my farm. They weren't trying to help me manage my bills. They were trying to liquidate my life to cover their gambling losses. But that is not all, Steinberg said, his voice dropping an octave. Mike found something else. He got access to their private messages. You need to see this, Bernie, but I warn you, it is going to hurt more than the money. He handed me a tablet. On the screen was a chat log between Rachel and her best friend, a woman I had known since she was in diapers. I started reading. The timestamp was from 2 days ago. Rachel wrote, I don't know how much longer we can stall the bank. We need the money from the farm now. Her friend replied, can't you just ask him for a loan? He has savings, right? Rachel's response made the blood freeze in my veins. Asking him takes too long. He is so stubborn. He clutches those pennies like they are gold bars. Besides, he's useless now. He's just a bag of bones taking up space. I am just waiting for him to kick the bucket so we can finally live the way we deserve. The old man is practically dead anyway. We are just speeding up the paperwork. I stared at the words bag of bones, waiting for him to kick the bucket. This was my little girl, the girl I had carried to bed when she fell asleep in the car, the girl whose hand I had held when her mother died. She wasn't just greedy, she despised me. She saw me as an obstacle, a piece of debris to be cleared from her construction site. The door to the office opened and Mike walked in. He was a former homicide detective, a man who had seen the worst of humanity. And even he looked uncomfortable. He didn't say hello. He just walked over and placed a flash drive on the desk. Mr. Kowalski, Mike said, his voice growly. I verified the doctor they are using. Doctor. Vance, he has a record. He lost his license in Ohio for over-prescribing opioids. He got it back here on a technicality. He is in debt to the same loan sharks Jason borrowed money from to cover his tracks. They aren't just looking for a diagnosis. Bernie. They bought one. I closed my eyes for a second. The betrayal was total. It was a conspiracy. My daughter, my son-in-law, a crooked doctor. They had built a cage for me bar by bar while smiling in my face. I stood up and walked to the window. I looked out at the city lights. I owned 3 of the buildings I could see from here. I had 4,000 employees who depended on my decisions. I was the silent king of this concrete jungle, and my own flesh and blood thought I was a senile old fool. I turned back to Steinberg and Mike. My face was stone. The pain was there deep in my gut, burning like a coal, but I pushed it down. I replaced it with the cold, hard logic of business. When a building has a rotten foundation, you don't patch it, you demolish it. Steinberg looked at me, his pen poised. What do you want to do, Bernie? We can file a restraining order. We can show them these texts. We can stop the power of attorney hearing before it even starts. No, I said. My voice filled the room, authoritative and final. That is what a victim does. I am not a victim. If we stop them now, they will just find another way. They will wait until I actually get sick. They will come back like termites. No, we are going to let them proceed. Steinberg frowned. Bernie, that is dangerous. If they get that signature. They won't, I interrupted. Listen to me. Here's the plan. First, I want you to move all my liquid assets, everything that isn't tied down in the corporate trusts. Move it to the account in Zurich tonight. Leave the local checking account with just enough to keep the lights on at the farm. Let them think that is all I have. Steinberg nodded, typing furiously. Done. What else? I pointed to the foreclosure notice on the desk. Who holds the note on Rachel's house? First National, Steinberg said. I want you to buy it. I said, use the holding company, the one with the obscure name, Omega Holdings. Buy their debt. Buy Jason's car loans. Buy every cent of debt they have. I don't want them owing the bank. I want them owing me. Mike let out a low whistle. That is cold. Mr. Kowalski, it is business. I said, they want to play games with property rights. Let's teach them a lesson in ownership. And Steinberg regarding the construction company. Draft a new directive for the board. Effective immediately. Any contracts with vendors associated with Jason's failed crypto partners are terminated. Scorched earth. Steinberg looked up, a small, shark-like smile touching his lips. You are going to squeeze them. I am going to crush them. I corrected, but they need to believe they are winning. They need to walk into that trap thinking they have the cheese. Tomorrow, Rachel is going to take me to see this doctor, Vance. She wants a diagnosis. I will give her a performance that will win an Academy Award. I will be the most confused, helpless old man she has ever seen. I want that doctor to sign that paper. I want them to commit the crime. I want it on record. Mike tapped the flash drive. I can wire you up. Bernie, audio and video. We can catch Vance soliciting a bribe or falsifying the exam. Do it. I said, I want high definition. I want to see the sweat on his forehead when I take him down. I walked back to the desk and picked up the tablet again. I looked at the message one last time. Old bag of bones. I set the tablet down gently. They think I am dying. They think I am weak. They are about to find out that I am the one who holds the sledgehammer. Steinberg stood up. It will take me all night to structure the debt acquisition. Bill me, I said. Bill me for every second. I walked toward the door. My step was light. The exhaustion was gone. I had a project now. It wasn't a skyscraper or a stadium. It was a lesson in respect. I paused at the door. One more thing. Arthur. Yes. Bernie. Find out where Brittany wants to go to college. Steinberg checked his notes. She's been talking about fashion school in Paris. Very expensive. By the building, I said. Steinberg paused, his pen hovering. Excuse me. By the building that houses the school, I said calmly. If I am going to pay for her education, I might as well be her landlord, too. I want to control the roof over her head when she realizes her tuition checks are bouncing because her parents are bankrupt. I want to be the one she has to call. I walked out into the hallway. The elevator dinged. I stepped in and watched the doors close. I was going home to my empty farm. I would sleep in the bed my wife and I had shared. I would look at her picture and apologize for what I was about to do to our daughter. But Catherine would have understood. She hated thieves and she hated liars. Our daughter had become both. As the elevator descended, I checked my watch. It was 2 a.m. In 7 hours. Rachel would come to pick me up for the doctor's appointment. She would bring coffee. She would smile that fake smile. She would treat me like a child. Let them come. The trap was set. The bait was laid. And the wolf was waiting in the living room dressed in sheep's clothing. The morning sun glared off the hood of Rachel's luxury SUV. As we pulled into the parking lot of a nondescript medical building on the edge of the city, it was not the hospital where my late wife had been treated, nor was it the office of my regular physician who had known me for 20 years. This place was tucked between a dry cleaner and a payday loan center, a brick box with tinted windows that seemed designed to keep secrets rather than heal the sick. Rachel put the car in park and turned to me, her face arranged in that mask of exaggerated concern she had perfected over the last week. Dad, we are just going to have a little chat with Dr. Vance, she said, her voice pitched high and slow the way one speaks to a disobedient child or a golden retriever. He is a specialist. He is going to help us figure out why you have been so confused lately. I stared out the window, letting my mouth hang open slightly, keeping my eyes unfocused. I didn't tell her that I knew exactly who Dr. Vance was. I didn't tell her that Mike, my private investigator, had sent me a dossier on this man that was thick enough to choke a horse. Vance was a doctor who had lost his privileges at 2 major hospitals for ethical violations. He was a man drowning in gambling debts, a man who sold prescriptions and diagnosis to the highest bidder. He was the perfect tool for a daughter who wanted to erase her father's legal existence. I patted my chest pocket, feeling the hard, rectangular outline of the high-definition recording device Mike had taped to the inside of my jacket. It was running. Every word, every lie, every breath in that room would be captured. I don't need a doctor. Rachel, I mumbled, letting a tremor shake my hand as I reached for the door handle. I just need to go to the farm. I need to feed the chickens. I haven't had chickens in 15 years. But Rachel didn't care about the details. She just needed the narrative. See, Dad, this is what I mean. She sighed, getting out and coming around to open my door. You don't have chickens anymore. You are living in the past. Come on, let's get this over with. She gripped my arm hard, her nails digging into my bicep through the fabric of my coat. It wasn't a guiding hand. It was a shackle. We walked into the waiting room. It smelled of stale coffee and industrial cleaner. The carpet was worn, and the magazines on the table were 3 years old. There was no receptionist, just a sliding glass window that was firmly shut. Rachel knocked on it sharply. A moment later, a heavy door buzzed open, and a man in a white coat stepped out. He was younger than I expected, maybe 50, with solicked back hair and eyes that darted around the room like a trapped animal. He wore a gold Rolex that looked too big for his wrist and too expensive for the zip code. This was Dr. Vance. Mrs. Miller, he said. extending a hand to Rachel. He didn't even look at me. I see you brought the patient. Yes, doctor, Rachel said, lowering her voice to a conspiratorial whisper. He has been worse this morning. He thinks he has livestock to feed. He forgot where he was 3 times on the drive over. We need that assessment today. The bank. I mean, the insurance needs it immediately. She had almost slipped. She almost said the bank. They needed the competency ruling to finalize the foreclosure bailout and sell my land. Vance nodded, his eyes finally sliding over Tim. He looked at me not as a person, but as a transaction. A quick signature, a fat envelope of cash, and his bookie would be off his back for another month. Come on back, Bernie. Vance said, his tone oily and dismissive. Let's take a look at you. I shuffled after him, dragging my feet, letting my shoulders slump. We entered an examination room that was barely larger than a closet. The examination table paper was wrinkled, as if it hadn't been changed since the last patient. Vance sat on a rolling stool and gestured for me to sit on the exam table. Rachel stood by the door, arms crossed, guarding the exit like a prison warden. So Bernie Vance began clicking a pen. He didn't pick up a stethoscope. He didn't check my blood pressure. He went straight for the kill. Do you know what year it is? I looked at the ceiling, squinting as if trying to recall a distant memory. It is 1998, I asked, my voice quavering. No, wait. Is Clinton still the president? I saw Rachel smirk in my peripheral vision. She was enjoying this. She was watching the mighty Bernie Kowalski, the man who demanded perfection on every job site reduced to a babbling fool. Vance scribbled on his clipboard, disoriented to time and place. He muttered loud enough for the recording to pick up. Okay, Bernie, can you count backward from 100 by sevens? I stared at him blankly. 107. I like the number 7. My wife. She liked 7. Where is Catherine? Is she coming to pick me up? Vance didn't even wait for me to finish. He checked another box. Severe cognitive impairment. Unable to perform simple calculations. He looked up at Rachel. It is textbook Mrs. Miller. Advanced dementia. Rapid onset. He is not capable of making financial or legal decisions. He is a danger to his own estate. Rachel let out a breath she must have been holding since she woke up. Thank you, doctor. You have no idea how hard this has been watching him fade away like this. Can you sign the certificate now? We have an appointment with the caregivers this afternoon. Hold on, Vance said. I need to ask him a few more questions to make it official, just for the file. He turned back to me, leaning in close. His breath smelled of peppermint and rot. Bernie, do you know who this woman is? He pointed to Rachel. I looked at my daughter. I looked at the greed in her eyes, the impatience, the total lack of empathy. I saw the little girl who used to cry when her ice cream fell, now grown into a woman who would push her father off a cliff for a purse. That is the lady from the bank, isn't it? I said softly. She wants my signature. Everyone wants my signature. Rachel rolled her eyes. See, he doesn't even know me. Vance nodded, flipping the page. Okay, Bernie. I'm going to prescribe you something to help you calm down. It is called haloperidol. It will help with the agitation. This was it. The trap. I knew haloperidol. I knew it because when I built the psych ward at St. Jude's 10 years ago, I had read the spec sheets on the pharmaceutical storage protocols. It was a heavy antipsychotic used on elderly patients. It was often called a chemical restraint. It turned people into zombies. If he prescribed that without a proper physical workup, without checking my heart history, it was malpractice. It was assault. I widened my eyes, leaning forward, dropping the senile act just enough to deliver the payload. "Helper?" I asked, my voice suddenly clear, though I kept the volume low. Is that like the Thorazine they used to give the boys in the Union? I read in the Federal Register title, 42, Section 483, that chemical restraints are illegal in nursing facilities without a specific diagnosis of psychosis. Are you saying I am psychotic? Doctor. Vance froze. His pen stopped moving. He looked at me, really looked at me for the first time. I had just quoted the Code of Federal Regulations regarding the rights of nursing home residents. It was a specific, dense piece of legal knowledge that no dementia patient would recall, let alone cite in context. For a second, panic flared in his eyes. He realized I had just referenced a federal statute. He looked at Rachel, then back at me. He was trying to figure out if I was lucid or if I was just parroting something I had heard on a news program. I leaned back, letting my mouth go slack again, returning to the character. I saw it on the TV. I mumbled, drooling a little. The man on the TV said, Section 483. He said the bad doctors go to jail. Do you like jail? Doctor, my friend, he went to jail in Ohio for pills, opioids. He lost his license, just like the man on the TV. Vance turned pale. I just referenced his past. I just told him in the coded language of a madman that I knew about Ohio. I knew about the license he lost. I knew who he was. Rachel, oblivious to the duel happening between us, stepped forward impatiently. What is he talking about? He is rambling again. Just sign the paper. Doctor. Vance swallowed hard. He was sweating now. He looked at me and he saw the glint in my eye. He knew something was wrong. But he was trapped. He needed Rachel's money. He was in too deep to back out now. If he refused to sign, Rachel would demand a refund of the bribe she had likely already paid him. If he signed and I was faking it, he was finished. But greed is a powerful blinder. He convinced himself I was just repeating nonsense. He convinced himself a 71-year-old construction worker couldn't possibly know about his sealed record in another state. He is confabulating, Vance stammered, his voice cracking, mixing reality with television. It is a classic symptom, very advanced. He turned to the clipboard and signed his name at the bottom of the certificate of incompetency. The scratching of the pen on the paper sounded like a gunshot in the small room. Here, he said, ripping the sheet off and handing it to Rachel. This declares him mentally incapacitated. It gives you immediate medical and legal guardianship pending a court hearing. Take him home. Give him the pills I'm calling in. Keep him. Keep him quiet. Keep him. Rachel took the paper as if it were the Holy Grail. She stared at it, a smile spreading across her face that was pure, unfiltered avarice. Thank you, doctor. You have saved our family. She didn't know she was holding her own indictment. She didn't know that the piece of paper she was clutching was the final nail in her coffin. We have to go, Vance said, standing up abruptly. I have other patients. He wanted us out. He wanted me away from him. He was terrified. I stood up slowly. I looked at Vance. I tapped my chest pocket just once. A subtle gesture that meant nothing to Rachel, but everything to a man who lived in the shadows. The recorder. Have a nice day. Doctor, I said, my voice steady. The slur completely gone for just 1 second. Good luck with the audit. Vance's eyes widened, his jaw dropping. But Rachel was already pulling me out the door. Come on, Dad. We are getting ice cream. We are going to celebrate. We walked out into the parking lot. The sun was still shining, but the world had changed. They had done it. They had crossed the line. They had committed fraud, conspiracy, and malpractice, and I had it all on tape. Rachel buckled me into the car, treating me like a piece of precious, fragile cargo. Not because she loved me, but because I was now a liquid asset. She got into the driver's seat and pulled out her phone. I watched her type a message. I knew who it was for. It was for Jason. Got the paper. She typed, "He's officially crazy. Call the realtor. Sell the farm." I closed my eyes and leaned my head against the cool glass of the window. Let them make the call. Let them set the date. Tomorrow was going to be the longest day of their lives. They thought they were driving a senile old man back to his deathbed. They didn't know they were driving the CEO of their destruction. Rachel started the engine and turned up the radio, humming along to a pop song. She was happy. She thought she had won the lottery. I sat in the silence of my own mind, reviewing the plan. Steinberg would have the assets moved by now. Mike would be securing the video feed from the doctor's waiting room to corroborate the timeline. The trap was sprung. As we drove away from the clinic, I looked back one last time. I saw Doctor Vance standing in the window watching us leave, a look of pure dread on his face. He knew he had just made a fatal mistake. But Rachel, she didn't have a clue, and that was going to make the fall so much harder. I reached into my pocket and turned off the recorder. Phase 2 was complete. Now it was time for the escalation. It was time to let them think they were kings, right before I toppled the throne. I closed my eyes and pretended to sleep, dreaming of justice. It tasted sweeter than the ice cream she was about to buy me. The rumble of a diesel engine shattered the morning peace of my farm. I looked out the kitchen window, my hands gripping the edge of the sink until my knuckles turned white. A massive moving truck was backing up my driveway, crushing the aylas Catherine had planted 20 years ago. Behind it, Rachel's SUV and Jason's sports car followed like vultures, circling a carcass. They weren't just visiting, they were invading. I walked out onto the porch, letting my shoulders slump, putting on the mask of the confused old man. Rachel jumped out of her car, barking orders at the movers. She wasn't wearing her usual high heels. She was in combat mode, leggings and